Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Ghosts in Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the SA-805 assault rifle. You're going to get to see gameplay from this weapon in a variety of situations. I think I'm going to use almost every optical attachment available on it, several different fire modes, semi-automatic and the burst fire mode, a couple different muzzle and underbarrel attachments, so you're going to get to see a lot of different SA-805. And before we get started, I'd like to make a point of clarification about the previous episode in the SC-2010. I had a subscriber try to call me out, if you will, or say that I did a lazy or underhanded sort of guide on the weapon, and that's not the case. And his point was that I did not compare the recoil plots of the weapons on Synthic.com, which is a great source for information if you've ever been there. And while I do use that website as information, I typically avoid the charts, even though I know that ProBaddy, the guy that makes these things, has a great program and it runs great and it does great things. The charts have a tendency to influence my bias on a weapon, especially the recoil portion, because it's very visual, and I don't want to look at a visual chart and kind of get primed for a certain response about how a weapon should or shouldn't perform. I look at the numbers, but I don't look at the chart until afterwards, just to make sure that I don't get messed up, because I've had a situation in the past where the chart was actually incorrect, and because of that priming I was thinking that a weapon was lower recoil than it really was. Anyway, had enough time to talk about that. Let's move on to the actual SA-805 in-depth review. The first thing that you want to know about this weapon is that it will deal 40 damage in close quarters combat, but drop off to 25 at a distance. What this means for you is that it will take between 3 and 4 shots to kill, depending on how far away you are from the enemy, and this is a good thing. That means it's going to have a very consistent time to kill. It's either 3 shots or 4 shots, not a lot of variation. Doesn't matter if you're shooting them in the chest or the knees, it does the same damage. However, headshots do deal extra damage to the tune of 1.5x damage per headshot, which is essentially going to mean 1 less shot to kill per range. So if you're getting headshots, that could be 2 to 3 shots to kill, depending on how far away you are. And the range on which you're going to get a 3-shot kill, and that's probably the most important thing about this gun because it has a very, very long and consistent range, is 31 meters. 31 meters is a distance so far away that almost all of your submachine guns are going to be at minimum damage, and some of the other assault rifles are starting to drop off. 31 meters is a very long distance. It's not the longest. We're going to go over several longer ranged assault rifles later on, but it is a very long range, and considering the fact that it's 3 to 4 shots to kill, that's only going to increase the sort of consistency in the time to kill of this weapon. The rate of fire is 769 RPM, or rounds per minute. That's higher than average for a lot of assault rifles. It's not crazy high, it's not the highest or the fastest, but it is again a little bit above average, so you've got a weapon with what I would call average damage. It's got a very consistent time to kill, a very long range, and a slightly above average rate of fire. Well, that's a lot of strengths on this weapon. That's a lot of benefits, a lot of good things. Where's the downside to this weapon? What's bad about it? Because right now the weapon's starting to sound pretty OP, pretty MLG and that sort of thing. Well, the recoil is more moderate. Looking at the charts, which I did do this time after being haggled about it, I can tell that the recoil isn't as good as the other weapons, but it felt worse than what the chart even indicated. Perhaps it's that I have a bad feel for the recoil, perhaps whatever type it has I'm terrible at compensating for, but the recoil is moderate. It's certainly not low, it's certainly not easy to control. It's something that you're going to have to take the time to master to get a feel for and that sort of thing, which I, in my multiple attachments and going through this weapon, I never actually got a good feel for the recoil, which made me perform much, much worse. The aim down sight time is 0.3 seconds. This is standard for all of the assault rifles, neither faster nor slower than the other ones, but QUICKDRAW will speed that up to about 0.2 seconds, so that's one of the reasons I always run that perk. The reload times, or at least the reload animations, are definitely on the slow side, with 3.76 seconds for a reload of an empty weapon. A full reload is 2.76 seconds, but thankfully you can reload cancel in about a second and a half, so if you need to reload this weapon, always reload cancel. That's going to save you so much time, effort, and headache, and it will definitely keep you alive longer. Magazine size is nothing to write home to your mom about. It's pretty standard. 30 rounds in the magazine normally. Extended mags has 45. When you spawn, you're going to have 60 extra, so that's 2 extra mags. A little bit low, a little lower than previous Call of Duty games, but I noticed that most assault rifles are like that. Putting extended mags on is going to increase the amount of ammo that you've got in your current mag and in your capacity or in your backpack. Now we're getting on down to the subjective part of the in-depth episode, and I'm going to say that the iron sights obstruct my view a lot. I really don't actually like the iron sights on this weapon. They're difficult to use. The actual core center of the iron sight is nice and clear and pristine, and it has a thin circle with a small vertical bar where I can put on my target, but then there's this sort of outside structure, this big blocky thing going on the outside that blocks my view, which I don't particularly like. I have trouble tracking targets, and if I get a little bit off, I have trouble locking onto my target with these iron sights, so I prefer not to use them. Optical attachments preferred. These are, I would say, barely usable, but definitely not ideal. When it comes to my opinion of the weapon, I will say that this is a statistically very strong assault rifle, and it should be top tier. The range is excellent. The consistency of damage is excellent. It punches through objects easily. It has a higher than average rate of fire, and the base damage is actually a little bit higher than what I would call normal for Call of Duty games. This game has a lot of crazy weapons in it, so it's not too abnormal for Ghost, but it definitely would outperform just about any Black Ops 2 assault rifle, and it should be top tier. I would want to call this the best assault rifle in the game, but I am yet to master the recoil, or the kick, or whatever you want to call it, or do particularly well with it. Whatever is going on with the recoil of this weapon, whatever pattern it has, however it kicks, I'm yet to get a good, consistent sort of feel for it where I can ding people at long ranges, and maybe that's the trick to this weapon. Maybe that's the balancing feature, is that recoil, but it's definitely the limiting component of you murdering people. It's the bottleneck, it's the weakness, it's the Achilles heel of the SA-805 is the recoil. If you can master this recoil and you can do well with it, this is definitely a top tier weapon and one of the best assault rifles in the game. I use it with the following perks. I use QUICKDRAW and I use Focus. I don't use Ready Up as much, or I probably did in this video, but you can get by without it. I'm trying to recommend different perks in each episode, because with the SA-805, ideally you shouldn't be very close to your enemy. You should be a little bit further out, so QUICKDRAW isn't going to be as beneficial because you'd be wanting to spot them before they spot you and not do a little cowboy contest. QUICKDRAW I just don't do anything without QUICKDRAW on my assault rifles, and Focus is going to help you win a gunfight. The recoil is less than ideal, so if you get shot and you flinch and your head bobbles all around, along with the recoil, you're definitely going to lose, so you need Focus to kind of keep you on target in those gunfights. And the attachments that I use are varied. I would say pick one of the above and an optical attachment. So you want some kind of optical, whatever kind of optical you like, whatever floats your boat the best. Semi-automatic works very well on this weapon. It's got a long 3-shot kill range. Semi-automatic is going to give it a long 2-shot kill range with the damage boost. And if you don't know about the semi-automatic, that's going to turn every AR into a 2-shot kill. You can check out that in-depth episode. Muzzle brake gives it extra range. Muzzle brake is very good. That's going to give it extra range to the tune of 6, 7, 8, 9 meters, just kind of depending on what sort of damage you're looking for. And because the recoil has been a pain in my butt this whole time, the foregrip is very beneficial. I run the foregrip quite often, but I would tell you to pick whichever one of these attachments you find to be the most beneficial if you want semi-automatic, if you want muzzle brake, or if you want foregrip, and then pick an optical attachment that you like or that fits the map, and that's how you're going to do well with this weapon. Well guys, that's all for this episode of In Depth. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something useful. If you'd like to check out the previous episode on the SC-2010, you can click the box on the left. That'll open in a new window. If you'd like to check out the next episode, that's going to be on the MSBS and why it's overpowered, and this is going to be a somewhat different in-depth episode, but a very, very important one. You can click that box on the right, and that'll go live whenever it's up. As always, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe, and the Brass Monkey Ultimate Utility app is linked down there in the description. Don't forget to use code DRFT if you're interested in that. Drifter out.